Matt, if there's any Elliott Smith, then on this track, then you better damn well take it out of the first seconds. Okay, so welcome to Mixed Metaphors, spreading the good news of books, metal, and video games. And there may be one day where I can say that tagline without pausing to think of what the next noun would be. But anyway, I don't mean news. Or what the nouns in sequence are going to be so that I have them ready after I say books. But, well, Matt, why don't you just talk about books? Maybe someday I'll go back to just talking about books. But I do like the metal in the video games. And the video games have been sort of integrated in by virtue of the gameplay videos. Anyway, welcome to Metal Moon Day. Yes, it is Monday, and Monday is actually Moon Day, just like as Mark Passio says very humorously, whereas ours is seemingly derived from the word Horus, which is like the sun god or something. Minutes is moonits. And I think seconds actually has something to do with Mercury, or Hermes or whatever. But anyway, yeah, minutes is moonits. And Monday is Moon Day. And here on Metal Moon Day, we are exploring metal. So I'm recording this the day before I think this may go up, unless I end up recovering the sound from the Megadeth tier list ranking video that I did, where I took screen recordings doing part of a tier list for Megadeth, and each time I played the preview, I think, or at least one of the times, I'm pretty sure I heard some fucking sound coming out of that video. But after I saved the videos and then I put them on iMovie, it was like, oh, there's no sound. What's going on? Then I opened the video files one by one, and there seemed to be no sound. And so I was like, what the hell? Since when do they show you sound in a preview of a video that you recorded and are about to save, and then suddenly the sound is gone when it's saved? It's like, are you not saving the thing they're showing you a preview of? How did they have why did they have sound and then they only saved it as the video file without the sound being saved? Like, I went online, QuickTime screen recordings, something along the lines of like videos not coming out with sound, and it said like, well, you may not have routed it to your computer microphone to get the sound. And it's like, well, clearly I did, because it did record the sound, because in the preview I heard the sound of the words that were coming out of my mouth, as Matt McKinley might say. And so clearly the microphone was working when it was recording, because in the preview of the recording, it had saved the sound. But then when it actually was saving the recording to my computer to like actually save rather than to just hold there as a preview, I guess, it seemed to not take the sound with it. However, there seemed to be a result or two about, or whatever, the possibility of restoring sound in like a mute or a low volume video. So I'm gonna try that, because it's actually like kind of sad. Like, I thought of Hemingway losing the mythical briefcase full of manuscripts or whatever on the train. It's not like it was a Megadeth tier list ranking thing, but it was still just, I would say, it still came out well. And who's to say that some commentary on a Megadeth tier list ranking video isn't really high quality? I mean, I'm not claiming that it's like a Hemingway manuscript, but I'm also saying that it doesn't have to not be. Like, the quality doesn't have to be low for a Megadeth tier list ranking thing. Quality could be high. I think it was pretty high, actually. It turned out pretty well, and so I hope to get the audio back. If I do get the audio back, you're probably going to be hearing this maybe the next week or maybe never. Anyway, because I was so disheartened, I may end up, if that is lost, I may end up doing the Megadeth tier list ranking again, which will be the third time I've ranked this same set of Megadeth albums. The first one was just an audio file, and it wasn't a tier list. Like, it wasn't visually set up as a tier list. Well, it wasn't a tier list. It was just a ranking. But, you know, maybe the third time will be the charm with that one. I'm sure Dave Mustaine would appreciate the occultism in that. Matt, occult, it's just third time's a charm. Yeah, I'm not saying that's necessarily occult, but I am saying I would stand behind the idea that there's probably more occultism in that kind of phrase than you might be aware of if you haven't looked into occultism. Check out Mark Passio with What on Earth is Happening. Anyway, you may notice that the title of this episode is a little strange. Not that the other titles of the other episodes, not that the other episodes' titles, that's an apostrophe after the S for episodes, there aren't maybe strange or unusual or just unhelpful, but or just non-descriptive, but this one is going to be called Accountability. And Wednesdays, if it goes according to plan, is going to be called Perseverance, and Fridays is going to be called Reason. And it is going to be a Metal Moon Day. It is going to be an Odin's Game Day, and it is going to be a Freya's Book Friday. So, with the metal part, it's accountability. Now, where did I sort of string this together from? Well, there's a movie that you may have seen. It's a fairly popular movie. It's called As Good as It Gets by, I don't know who directed it, but it's a movie featuring Jack Nicholson, and it has two really, really good dialogue moments. Now, the first good dialogue moment, or at least one of the good dialogue moments, and I think they may both be him at the doctor's office or something. One of them, I think he's like getting up in a waiting room or something and talking to the other people in there, and one of them, he's talking to the receptionist as he leaves like a psychiatrist appointment or something like that, I think. And anyway, in the first one, it's these are minor spoilers. They're not really story spoilers, but you know, they're quote spoilers. So if you haven't seen As Good as It Gets, then you know, just skip past to where there isn't As Good as It Gets spoilers written on the screen, like it may be now or it should be. Take out everything after B there, Matt, or take out the other words after that anyway. Okay, so so the first line that I'd like to talk about, it's unrelated to the titles, or you know, not directly related necessarily maybe, but it's when he gets up in the waiting room and like he's looking at the other people in the room and he says, "What if this is as good as it gets?" And it's just, you know, I think it came off a little trite when I just said it there, but basically it's like these people are waiting to see a fucking doctor, and it's actually sort of, the subtext is even richer than even the writer might have thought. Who knows? But I think there's an even richer subtext to, they're not only like waiting in a hospital or something, which sort of implies something negative going on in their lives that they're trying to fix. So what if it's as good as it gets, just trying to fix something that went wrong? Like that's the state of that, trying to fix something that went wrong is as good as it gets. Like what if that is what if it is as good as it gets to always just be sort of like the myth of Sisyphus thing, to always be trying to, not only trying to fix something, but actually looking for somebody else's help to have something fixed. It's like to look for that, not even your own help, but somebody else's help. That's a pretty tragic state. And it is, yeah, it's even richer subtext though, because as many of us have sort of concluded in the, you know, in the past lifetime or so, the people at a doctor's office who are like working there, they can help you out. I did have a kidney stone in 2023, and I went to the hospital thinking it might have been appendicitis, and they did help me out. It was just a kidney stone. I mean, they didn't really do much, but you know, it was nice that they were there. But sort of, I mean, at best they can save your life, I suppose, but at usual, they're not going to be doing that much for you that wouldn't be better off, at least according to me. This is not medical advice, I'm not a doctor, but in my opinion, they're not, or in my assessment, not even just my opinion, in my assessment of the situation, most times they're not doing something that you wouldn't be better off sort of letting yourself have happen automatically by sort of letting go emotionally and sort of letting everything reorganize itself naturally. But anyway, not only that, but it's actually even worse than that, as Sam Harris might say. I'm going to make it even worse, or something like that, or it's actually even worse than that. It's much of the time, I'd say most of the time, you're better off just, again, this is according to my own assessment of the situation, with my own experience with, you know, sort of alternative healing modalities and stuff like that or whatever. But I think most of the time you're better off, with, you know, living healthily to begin with. Obviously, you know, it helps to not have something bad or distressing or whatever, if you want to put it that way, happen in the first place. But then also you are looking, also you know, often enough your body, or just like the natural healing processes that go on, you know, essentially, it seems like a hospital is in the Band-Aid business, where it's not really addressing the issues that led you to the situation often enough. It's sort of applying something to the situation itself. And so if you were to work on emotional stuff and spiritual stuff, then, you know, hey, do it yourself and tell me that it didn't work if it didn't. But, you know, if you were to work on it yourself, I think that it would be, you'd be much better off, because then, you know, you might get to the root of some kind of issue rather than just getting a pill to, you know, ease some kind of effect that seems to be happening from something that then, you know, it comes up again. Like if you get sick all the time, why do you get sick all the time? Why not other people getting sick all the time? I don't get sick all the time, you know, and you might say, well, Matt, you know, you might just be lucky or whatever. You might just be young, wait until you're older, blah, blah, blah. If you're, you know, if you have less money to eat well, like blah, 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 not that I eat well, or, you know, if you live in an area where there's more pollution or however many things, you know, it may not be as simple as just spiritual or emotional growth or work to deal with these things. I'd say try it out and actually like do it for yourself, and you might find that you're not getting sick when you, and bad things aren't happening quite as much when you're dealing with the emotional root of different things. Now, anyway, of course, the added subtext to the scene that I may be getting at is, as I was starting to say, as many people may have concluded in, the past, their past however many years of living. Not only do hospitals often just give you band-aids, and not only are they also often, and I'd say probably most of the time, not really necessary and actually a lesser option, but they are also often enough, maybe not as often as the middle portion there, the not really necessary and actually lesser, but or whatever, but the other portion or whatever, the a little less than the middle portion, but probably in some cases probably very widespread. Hospitals actually, in my assessment, do more damage than good, whether it be the hospital, so-called hospitals that you go to have your baby torn apart inside of your womb, and you're not looking at the ultrasound screen while your little baby screams in there, and of course you can't hear it because you're safely on the outside of that, and the baby is defenseless, being pulled apart by a doctor who tears off his little leg and then tears off the other leg, and he's screaming in there, and then he tears off his arms, and then he crushes his head, or she crushes his head, and then they suck out the body parts. Like that's something that hospitals, so-called, seem to do hundreds of thousands of times a year in America alone, or so I've heard. And oh, so you've heard? Yeah, it's just cells, Matt. You're making that shit up. All right, look into it yourself if you actually care about being right. Right? Okay. But then B, with all the maybe certain things, certain treatments that may be applied for certain issues, real or imagined, maybe they're maybe even if it's not literally someone in the so-called hospital intending to kill somebody, like happens with abortion, or or was that baby not growing and moving around in there before the doctor took his little metal tools in to kill him with, or her, because it can also be a little girl in there, and women's empowerment, right? But anyway, it is even when they're not looking to actually kill you, then they may be ignorantly contributing to the decline of your own health when they go in to give you certain medications for you say you don't feel very good, like you feel kind of down, and they say, well, instead of dealing with your emotional issues, which we're not even going to mention here, this is just Matt doing this rhetorically, we're going to give you something that will maybe contribute to an alteration of how you're feeling from some kind of chemical level, similar to drinking a lot of alcohol, or similar to smoking pot, or similar to any other drugs that you might take to change how you're feeling, or to feel a little different in some ways. And and we're also going to call it brain chemistry, but we're never going to give you any kind of chemical test. We're never going to even we're never going to do anything physical. We're going to call it physical, though, and then we're going to give you some pills and say, you have to take these for the rest of your life, because we don't actually have an answer for you to feel better, unless, some of them give pills, but also work towards emotional integration. Maybe that would be at least something. But, it's like, well, we don't believe, or they wouldn't say this, but we don't believe in dealing with your emotional issues. We believe in covering them up with medications. Anyway, so what if this is as good as it gets? You're going into a windowless room for help with an issue that may be better off resolved in some other way from someone who would just as quickly potentially kill you. Anyway, the other quote from As Good as It Gets that I want to talk about here, and this is the one that I'm sort of structuring this week's episode titles around and the episode content, is him being asked by a receptionist. Jack Nicholson is the main character of the movie, or he's the character that I'm talking about, and he is a writer, and he's sort of a popular writer, and I think he's a writer of like romance novels or something. But in any case, whatever you draw from this, the woman at the reception desk for whatever office he went into, I think it may have been a psychiatrist's office, similar to, actually it's even worse for the prior one if it was a psychiatrist's office for the "what if this is as good as it gets" quote, because if you're going to a psychiatrist's office and they're prescribing you medication rather than helping you deal with your issues naturally, then it's like you're in the wrong place to begin with. You're in the wrong place looking for help. Or what if this is as good as it gets? But the other quote is this receptionist says, like, "Oh, I'm such a fan of your books, Mr. Whatever. How do you write women so well?" And then he turns around. I think the elevator might already be open that he's about to leave on, or maybe he's pushed the button or whatever, but he's about to leave, I think. I think it's when he's leaving. I don't know if it's when he gets there, but he looks at her and he says, she asked him, "How do you write women so well?" or something like that. And he looks at her and he says, "I think of a man, and then I take away reason and accountability." Now, unfortunately, in today's cultural setup, that is not too bad of a description of many or even most women. However, I will also say that's probably not too bad of a, well, there might be a Freudian slip. That's probably not that bad of a description of most men in our culture either. And you could do the inverse and say, well, how do you write such good male characters? Or how do you write such good or men? Well, I think of a woman and then I take away responding to situations individually rather than based on some kind of broad principle that may seem not to be applicable or may seem not to be the best result in a situation. And I take away, compassion for those who are failing or something. And of course, I would return to, if you're going to make the claim that women are more compassionate than men, then I think you have a lot of dead babies to account for. Or if nevertheless, I think you probably could do a decently snappy and decently piercing feminine alternative to that, where it's, I think of a woman and I take away restraint and delineation or something. I mean, I don't know, something like that. But in any case, I thought of a week of these episodes, and video games would be Perseverance. That's going to be on Wednesday, maybe. And then on Friday, it's Reason with the books. So Perseverance is the one that he didn't say, although, I think Perseverance goes along with a lot. Perseverance probably, maybe it's more of a male thing anyway. I'm not saying women can't persevere, and I'm not saying they don't persevere in many cases, or, just as often as men maybe, but, perseverance seems like more of a masculine kind of going out and getting it kind of thing, rather than a feminine sort of receptive, sort of connective kind of thing. But, well, Matt, that's really shitty to women. Oh, emotional connection is a shitty thing to say about someone. It's like, all right, again, I don't think women necessarily are more compassionate or more emotionally connective than men are, but I think there may be some strengths there in the emotional and sort of the connective sphere between people that women have that men are less interested in. The old items versus persons example. Anyway, Metal. So Metal is about accountability, I would say. So a lot of popular music is about the opposite of accountability. A lot of popular music could probably be described as as a sort of the Don Draper quote from the beginning of the series Mad Men, where he says something like, every billboard in the world, basically the message is it's okay. Or like, hey, you, I think this was from the first episode. Basically, the message of advertising is, hey, or the message that advertising could have, or perhaps the ideal one is, hey, whoever you are, whatever you're doing right now, you're okay. Another Don Draper thing from the end of the first season is something along the lines of like, new is, the term new is like an itch or something, and then you bring your product in like calamine lotion to comfort you in that itch or something like that, to help resolve it. But it's an itch that, that is associated with the term new. So it's like, oh, you may not have had that itch if they didn't sort of pepper it onto you with the new. But anyway, it's like a lot of music, or a lot of the messages in music, like the verbal conceptual messages that you get in popular music, at least that I've heard, and probably spanning different cultures, probably not just the American culture, although mostly I've heard the American stuff, other than maybe like classical music or something, which I haven't listened to as much as I could, and perhaps as much as I will someday. But, a lot of the message is very satanic. A lot of the message is like, you're like, it's all about you, like it doesn't matter if you do something wrong, like, hey, screw it. Just, like sort of a Nike kind of thing. Like, just do it. Like, just do whatever you're doing. Like, it's okay, but not in sort of an emotionally released sort of sense, but more of a sense of like having no standards at all. I think probably prior to him, but at least from Elvis straight on down to the present day, it's all been the same message: hedonism. Fuck whoever you want and don't care about it. Like, oh, a baby gets conceived. Well, leave the woman, or have the baby murdered or something. It's like, this is really dark shit. Well, Matt, what pop songs or songs are you listening to that are talking about like having babies killed if you have sex? It's like, it's an undercurrent in a lot of stuff. It's, look again, Elvis straight on down to the current stuff. It's all about sleeping around and not giving a shit about the consequences, all about just looking for pleasure and looking for all these things. It's like, not caring about what happens afterwards, you're not getting together to start a family. You're not getting together to, even getting together to just like have your name survive throughout history, or your genetic line or whatever. No, you're getting together to have some kind of romance that is part emotional between you and the person you're having sex with, and then part pleasure-based in terms of just like the feelings involved with it physically. And it's just nowhere is the actual like point of this all coming into play. Well, Matt, you're just talking about sex. What about the other stuff? Well, the other stuff too, like, oh, pleased to meet you, hope you guess my name. Or the Rolling Stones were saying, pleased to meet you, hope you guess my name. And, it's implied that the speaker of the song or of the, verses is Satan or the devil or whatever. It's like, they're telling you that, and then they're spreading this sort of satanic or satanistic, hedonistic message throughout a lot of their music. And they were a very popular band. It's like, pleased to meet you, hope you guess my name, this is what we've been singing about. I'm not saying Rolling Stones are not a good musical group per se, and actually I think the Rolling Stones, in the argument between them and the Beatles, perhaps both of them are Tavistock. It seems like the Beatles might be, but in any case, that's just from my looking into the stuff. But, between them and the Beatles, I think the Rolling Stones might be the better band. They have some really good stuff. But a lot of, and they might even have some spiritually helpful stuff. Eckhart Tolle talks about the "you can't always get what you want" lyrics in terms of spirituality and stuff, blah blah blah. But what you really get is moral relativism throughout all of this stuff, at least from Elvis, I would say, straight on down the line to today. It's just not careless shit. Just The Great Gatsby, they were such careless people. You could put that as the tag to most of the messages in most of the music that is popular or pushed in the media. And it actually, as Sam Harris might say, it gets worse than that, because it's not just sort of hedonism and carelessness and, not caring about accountability, not caring about the consequences, not caring about being responsible for things, not particularly caring if a baby gets tortured to death inside the womb. In fact, quite the opposite. Well, torture, they're not intending to cause pain. Yeah, but they're causing it. So fuck you, but, torture, but anyway, it's quite the opposite. In fact, there's a popular song that I was listening to in jail, after sending emails where abortion was part of the content that, people put me in there in the name of, killing in the name of, emailing in the name of. In jail, I heard this song on the radio enough times where I would I think I turned it off later times hearing it, because it was like there was a verse about a woman who's going to have her baby brutally murdered, and they're like, the verse ends with something like, wouldn't, essentially well, take a walk in her shoes and see how it feels to have to make the choice, or something like that, to have to make the choice. It's like, A, you don't have to. They might not have said have to, but I think they might have. And B, the choice, really? So you're covering it up with sort of neutral language rather than calling it what it really is, which is having your baby killed. Anyway, but it gets worse than that even. I mean, not worse than the baby killing maybe, but it gets worse than that in terms of rap music. I've listened to a lot of rap. I've made a decent amount of rap music myself. I've probably made more rap music than most rappers have ever made, really, or a lot of them. But in rap music, it's just the messages are just horrific. It's literally I think there's a rap song where a rapper, and not a particularly that obscure of a rapper. I think he says if I got AIDS, then I'd be raping bitches or something. And there are Eminem songs talking about sexual violence in sort of a joking kind of positive way, or there are all the songs about materialism, or about killing people in gangsta situations in the hood and stuff. And just almost every rapper you can think of has at least some horrifically disgusting moral themes or immoral themes in their stuff. So it's just writing like that, it's really gone from sort of hidden satanic themes and hidden hedonism and hidden carelessness to just straight up I don't care, get money, fuck bitches. I think literally there's a song, at least one song, where they say those four words in sequence: get money, fuck bitches. It's they're really not being obscure about this stuff anymore. It's just this is the popular music of the day. I guess there might not be any more popular music these days, really, but it is sort of the popular music. And or you get your shitty pop, which is pushing either hedonism and carelessness stuff, or it might be pushing stuff like Marxism or cultural Marxism or stuff like that. And, essentially just pushing division between people based on what they themselves might say are categories that don't matter. And yet we're pushing this kind of ideology, but more, it's really just the hedonism and the carelessness. Now, here's the thing. Metal has a lot of the hedonism. Metal has a lot of the carelessness. Metal has not only the satanic stuff, but also literal cries to the glory of Satan in a lot of metal. Like, you know, I can probably name you 10 CDs where they talk glowingly about the Satan character, or, you know, if Satan is real, who knows? But Israel, 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 no, is real, not anyway. Okay, so, or whatever. So, you know, metal has a lot of that stuff. Metal has a lot of violence. Go look at a Cannibal Corpse CD. Literally look at a CD cover for a Cannibal Corpse album, and you might not want to look at it for more than like a passing moment because it is horrific. And actually, I think their most recent album to this recording is called Chaos Horrific. Like it's just horrific shit. But metal also has a lot of accountability, and even some of the stuff, and here's the line I would draw, even some of the stuff that's violent, even some of the stuff that's dark, even some of the stuff that's satanic, not only in theory but also in verbiage, a lot of that stuff has to do with accountability. Like basically, like, you know, you fucked me over and I'm mad about it, or, you know, like, you're a bad person and, like, you know, go to hell, or, like, you know, a lot of metal has to do with accountability. A lot of metal, even the metal that has, like, you know, some of the stuff that I was criticizing in other music, it's not often from a sense, although I did say it has hedonism in it as well, but it's not often from a sense of carelessness. Metal is actually, I would say, more often from a sense of caring a lot, like deep caring. It may be caring and, you know, violent imagery and stuff, or themes that are, you know, satanic in nature. It may be caring and a lot of stuff that you wouldn't consider positive, or that I wouldn't say is positive. It may be caring and a lot of stuff that I've talked about, again, in relation to the other types of music, but there's a sense of deep care. There's not a sense of carelessness. With a lot of rap, there's a sense of carelessness. Fuck it all, make money, fuck bitches. You know, that's rap. Or with pop, it's like, oh, I'm just going to have a good time. I'm going to have fun tonight and screw the consequences. Like R&B, it's just like, let me fuck that girl. And I'm not talking about having a family. I'm not talking about making actual like babies, or, you know, having babies and then not having them killed. I'm just talking about using a woman like a piece of meat. Like that's R&B. Or, oh, Matt, you're really, that's R&B, you're being really offensive. It's like, I don't know, give me the top 10 R&B songs of the last decade. I imagine 9 out of 10 of them or more will be pretty much exactly what I just described them as. But it's like, you know, R&B like that, or like country music. It's shockingly, like country music, I listened to a little country music on the radio, I think years ago at this point, maybe before I went to jail, and I was surprised, maybe it was in jail, I was surprised by just how much there was referencing just drinking yourself stupid, like just drinking a lot and like washing away your troubles, quote unquote, with alcohol. I've never heard more references to like basically getting drunk and like drinking alcohol and stuff like that than I had listening to like you know, like an hour or so or however long of country. Like it was just like song after song talking about just like drinking and getting drunk, and not like in a partying sense, or, you know, I guess it probably, a lot of it was in a partying sense, but really in just a sense of like, we're doing this to, you know, we're doing this to avoid what we're feeling. We're just getting drunk at the end of the day. Well, I drive my truck away from work and I open my beer when I get home. You know, like you may say, well, Matt, you're not giving country a fair shrift here, or shift or whatever, but I don't know. I didn't listen to that much country, and I haven't listened to that much country. And a lot of what I heard when I actually went to look like, oh, you know, what's this country stuff all about? A shocking amount of like the newer sounding stuff that I heard. And you might say, well, that's the more mainstream stuff. That's the garbage. It's like, okay, maybe, but a shocking amount of it was just talking about getting drunk, like specifically getting drunk. It was weird, but it is, you know, country, R&B, rap, pop, regular like rock or classic rock or whatever, like so much of it is just careless. Fuck it all, get drunk. Fuck it all, have sex. Fuck it all, just have fun and not care about the consequences, that being pop. Fuck it all, you know, and the rappers are gonna just look to get as much money as possible and have as much sex with different women as possible, and cause do as much violence to the people that they dislike as possible, and it's always in a careless manner. Metal might have a lot of that stuff, but metal is, again, it seems to be a very accountable theme running through metal. And I've got to say, at least one of the most popular metal songs of all time, 2 Minutes to Midnight by Iron Maiden, literally criticizes the killing of babies. And you almost, I don't know if I can point to a single non-metal song that criticizes the killing of babies. Not a single one. Maybe I can, I don't know, but like that song 2 Minutes to Midnight, in the chorus it says, the chorus ends actually with "to kill the unborn in the womb," and they're not saying that in a celebratory way, they're saying that in a critical way. Now, I'm not saying that Iron Maiden necessarily is like a bunch of conservatives or anything, and it seems like actually they're kind of sort of leftist drones, maybe. I mean, probably, I don't know that far, but I think Bruce Dickinson said something that seemed to be like, oh, I'm going to punch a Trump supporter in the face, or so. He had some quote about like punching somebody in the face. He's the lead singer, the famous, most prominent lead singer of the band Iron Maiden. And I think in some quote he said something about punching somebody in the face, and I think it was in criticism of like someone who might be conservative, or like a politician who's so-called conservative or whatever. That's a whole nother realm, because politics in itself is immoral, and it's also not even presented transparently anyway. So it's all fucked up. It's like going to a hospital. It's all fucked up in there. But nevertheless, whatever Iron Maiden might say about different things, one of their big classic songs, 2 Minutes to Midnight, one of the greatest metal songs of all time, and one of the most popular ones probably, maybe not quite as much as Run to the Hills or The Trooper or something by Iron Maiden, or Rime of the Ancient Mariner maybe, or Hallowed Be Thy Name. But, one of the most popular metal songs of all time literally finishes out the chorus with "to kill the unborn in the womb," as if to say that the killer's breed or the demon's seed, the hands that threaten doom, that would be the doomsday clock, go to war again, blood is freedom's stain, to kill the unborn in the womb. Like, they end it off as if that is, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with this, they end the chorus with that as if that is the most egregious thing that they're talking about, and they mention the fucking doomsday clock for the fucking apocalypse of the earth or something on that song, but they end with "to kill the unborn in the womb" as if that's like the big, like, sort of snappy ending that shows like, this is how far down we've gone so far that we will kill the unborn in the womb in this culture. And that's not the only fucking metal song that I can point to that seems to be critical of the murder of children. The song Silent Scream by Slayer is named after a documentary about the horrors of killing unborn children in the womb, or preborn ones or whatever, and it's the documentary. I haven't watched the documentary, partially because the cover of the documentary is just horrific. It's literally an ultrasound picture of a baby screaming in the womb. I think probably while the baby is getting murdered. It's an ultrasound picture, visual evidence of a baby screaming as it's torn apart. And that's what Slayer named a song after. These are people who fucking care. Metal, at least a lot of metal, maybe not all of metal, but I think metal generally is way more about accountability than the other ones.